Hello and good morning. This is the Middle Earth in Mercia podcast, and this is episode 8 of our Mercian short series. And today we have for you leaks, and more leaks. And I hope you're hungry because what we have for dinner tomorrow is more leaks. This information came to us sort of late last night. I have stayed up perhaps a little too late preparing these slides and have sacrificed not only my sleep schedule, but perhaps also my sanity. With that said, I am your host, Sonny, and as usual, I am joined by the yin to my yang, the Sam to my Frodo, the best Rohan player on his street, the man who believes that sometimes one word really can be enough, my friend and co-host, Ash.
Hi guys. So yeah, we've got more leaks than WikiLeaks today. Over the next 4 days, we're going to showcase the leaks that have been sent to us by our friend of a podcast. Me and Sonny, as usual, are going to give our direct thoughts on that, and I'll try and bring up the energy to match Sonny's energy, because I think the little amount of sleep he's had seems to have given him an extra boost of energy. So maybe you need to have less sleep, Sonny, in the future.
Yeah, I feel slightly unhinged. I've had an entire pot of coffee. But yeah, so as Ash said, these leaks have come. They are out on the internet. I'm sure you can find them if you want. They're in the public domain. They have been supplied by a friend of the podcast. So these series of episodes are dedicated to that individual. Thank you very much for bringing them to our attention. Just as we haven't done anything like this before, this stuff obviously doesn't belong to us. We haven't leaked it ourselves. We haven't taken the photos. We don't own it in sort of that kind of capacity. We're just commenting on, the news of the day and reviewing that content in line with, sort of the kind of fair use that you've seen on many a YouTube channel. With that said, on to the fun content, because I think we do have a lot of fun content. So I'm just going to lay out what we're going to be doing over the next 4 days, and then we're going to absolutely delve into it because we have a ton of things. So as usual, we've had the feedback from you guys, and you like good quality, well-presented content, and that is exactly what we're going to be bringing to you. So what we have done, because of the depth of this information, is we have divided it up into 4 separate videos, and these are going to be delivered to you every single day for the next 4 days. So yeah, you better like leaks. But yeah, so the first video we're going to be presenting today, this is all about the definition of unit types and the new intelligence characteristic. Now that may sound like, maybe that's a bit one of the boring ones. I assure you it absolutely is not. Tomorrow, at the time of recording now, I think we have a fairly decent exclusive in that we have the Elrond profile to take you through. Then on Friday, we will be taking you through the Rohan profiles. And finally, on Saturday morning, we will be delivering the Dunland profile. So a lot to talk about, loads to go through. We're going to try and keep these, relatively short and concise so that you can get to the information that you want. And I can absolutely also assure you that you will be seeing the photos, no mere descriptions here. So if you are listening on Spotify, try and use that that video feature. If not, we're going to be full of description in this, so don't worry. It will still be worth your while. The one thing I will ask you before we get into this is, I know there has been a recent joining of our community by quite a lot of people. And before we get going, if you want to make sure that you hit all of these videos and see all of the content, please make sure to like, subscribe and follow or whatever on your platform of choice, because I think on the last video 80% of you aren't subscribed, so we'd love for you to join us more regularly. All right, I think I've absolutely ploughed through that. Hopefully I haven't bored anyone. We're going to get on with things. So Ash, you can see in front of us, we knew a new rule book was coming, and we were very aware that obviously this is going to bring new content and new definitions. Before we get into it, I know we've seen this a lot in other game systems, but are you surprised to see like leaks of this magnitude happening for this game?
Yes, I am actually. Because we were expecting that we would have this info at the weekend.
Mm.
And we were sat there and it got to 10 o'clock on Saturday and we had nothing and we were both messaging each other. It got to 11 o'clock, nothing. So we were like, okay, Sunday it's going to come. They're going to do a release 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock came and all we got was some nice battle hosts for other games, but no Middle-earth. So we were expecting this from Games Workshop before we got the leak. So I don't think they've leaked anything before in terms of rules for Middle-earth, I guess.
We had an ever so slight leak for sort of Air Nur and the King and stuff. I think a lot of it was mainly supplied, but to my knowledge, nothing like this has ever happened before.
Yeah, so it's exciting stuff that we've got here, and hopefully stuff we can look forward to and give us that energy we need back into the hobby after the massacre that happened in our last video.
Do you think it maybe suggests that, like, you know, there is a higher level of interest in this game than there ever has been before? Because, like, you and me being followers of other games, we're aware that how these leaks usually come about, because people that work at Nottingham don't tend to like to risk their jobs for a few leaks, is the two ways they usually come out is somebody on the influencer program or the rules testing program has leaked it, or a lot of these books are very cheaply printed in China, and it's pretty, like, with the people that have the connections, it seems pretty easy for them to sling somebody 20 quid and they take a few photos of the book before it goes out. Like, what's driving this, do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more hype with the new edition, new films, new models, as we keep seeing. I know people are accusing Games Workshop of dropping a few spoilers in terms of some of the models, in terms of the film. So yeah, I think we're going to see some boost of sort of, I guess, people coming into the game through the films. People who maybe play other parts of like Warhammer 40k, Warhammer Age of Sigma, things like that, they might start taking an interest because there's this influx of new models, new rules. It's sort of not a blank slate, but a bit of a blank slate for people to come and start the hobby from afresh.
All right then. With that said, that's a bit of enough of a preamble ramble, as another popular podcast said. So let's move on to our first leak. Here we go. If we had an editor, we'd have some sort of drum roll coming in here. So just imagine that. Here we go. And yeah, this is the first like properly presented leak that we have for you from. We believe this is actually from the main rulebook, and as you can see, this is 2 pages defining the new unit types. So if I just take you through sort of the generic ones, like you can see there, we've got infantry, cavalry, mount, monster, war beast, chariot, siege engine, hero, and warrior. All of these definitions more or less just match what we currently have now. I will say that I think that the wording is improved in terms of, like, when does an infantry become a cavalry model? When does a cavalry model then become an infantry? And specifically highlighting, like, the mount and things, and giving an idea of this is what we imagine this thing to be. I do think these are better written, but nothing revelational here on that first page, is there, Ash?
No, I don't think so. Nothing's really changed from the looks of it. It seems very sort of following on from what we had last edition.
I think the most notable thing is we obviously knew the dwarf chariot was sticking around, but it is a solid confirmation that we're going to have monsters, we're going to have siege engines, we're going to have chariots, and we're going to have war beasts. They've bothered to write the sections on these rules. So we know there's the potential for more of these. Like, we know, particularly with the war beast, I think that the Momok is now the only one in the game. You know, that's quite a bit of rules writing they've probably got on page 92. Are they going to have a second war beast somewhere in there? So, there's a lot of room for speculation as to what sort of models we might see, and we've got them fairly clearly defined there. But that said, that's fairly run of the mill. Let's move on to page 2 of it, and I think this is where we get interesting. So, let's get Beast out of the way. Beast is something that is different from monsters, isn't it? And Ash, why don't you take us through why it's different from being a monster?
I guess it's probably to cover things like that aren't quite a monster. It sounds like
No, I mean in the rules interaction.
Okay, yeah. So it's a figure that is more humanoid, a more humanoid figure than a beast figure, than a monster figure. So it looks a bit more human than, say, a troll, for example. I think is what they're trying to get out there. And
no,
interestingly,
Ash, you've got that the wrong way round. It's the other way round. It's less humanoid. It's a creature.
Oh, okay, yeah. Cut that bit. Cut.
We can't. We don't have an editor. It's staying in.
Okay. Then my bad. So yeah, it's something that is less of a human than a monster would be. Okay. And what I find interesting about it is they're not able to pick up items, so they can't pick up a banner. They can't carry objective markers. So like, if we go on match play that we've got now, things like retrieval and things like that, they won't be able to pick up those tokens and take them off the board. So that's an interesting thing that I guess we didn't have before.
I mean, as a rules interaction, that's interesting just as an isolation. And we will see this as we go more through the rules. But I think it perhaps suggests that there is going to be more. This can do this, and this can do this, and this is good at this. Like it suggests, obviously that monsters can do these things. That's pretty significant. And
I guess reading the wording actually there, does that mean I guess eagles are going to go from being a monster to a beast?
Perhaps that is a good point.
And we know that there's eagles in the new film because there's some graphical images.
I mean, the only thing with them not being able to pick up like tokens and things is, they literally come in and pick up Frodo and Sam, but we'll have to see what they do with it. I do think this new definition gives them options. So let's move on to a simple one, which is unique. I think this is literally just a new way of saying this is a named character. You can only have one of them. However, based on some stuff we're going to see in some other rules sections, and we will get onto it in detail. I don't want to overlap the videos, but there are some rules that suggest that certain models will be higher value when it comes to objectives than others. And this is something that we saw in 40k. And it does take the gaming of the game to a higher level because you have to think about your army structure more than just what's the best value and what's at killing. And I think what we could potentially be seeing here is that with these definitions of a unique character, perhaps a unique character is worth more on an objective than a normal hero, than a captain. We could be seeing a situation where unique is worth 3, heroes are worth 2, and so on. I think this could be really interesting. And same with monster and beast. Maybe there's a definition there. Maybe monster could be worth 5. We don't know. I at the moment, I think this is exciting because it's clearly giving the game's writers options. So I do think that's a simple but an interesting one.
I find it interesting as well that it also covers war gear. I'm trying to think of characters that have the same war gear. So now you won't be able to take
the
that
one
character if they've got... I guess, yeah. You can't take Bilbo and
one,
Frodo, I guess.
Yeah. The mithril coat, Bilbo and Frodo. That's another one. But yeah, Ash, why don't you take us through Swarm? Because I think this just fixes like a silly error in the rules we've had for a long time.
Yeah, so I won't mess this one up because I've been reading this one. So yeah, I think it just gives that more realistic viewpoint of, like, for example, a bat. So swarm basically means they're hard to pin down, and you can't ever knock them prone or trap them. So that just makes it realistic. Because in reality, like if you think of bat swarms or the cranian, is it the birds?
Crabane.
Crabane. They're flying. I messed it up still.
Am I the one that's sleep deprived, or is it you, Ash?
English is my second language.
Northern being.
So yeah, it makes it more realistic because you wouldn't actually be able to trap a bat because it just fly off. You wouldn't be able to knock it prone. So yeah, that'll be an interesting one. It'll be interesting to see what swarm is applied to in terms of the profiles.
So, well, I think it's probably going to be bats. It's probably going to be crabane. Maybe you know, like broodlings. I know Spider Queen's been taken out, but maybe broodlings could be one for that as well.
Yeah, some form of spider swarms, maybe.
Yeah. But moving on, because we do want to keep these videos relatively concise. I think the most interesting one is the elite keyword. We are going to see a definition separation between warriors and elites. So this heavily suggests because that you need a hero that has the appropriate keyword to enable you to take these elite models, that we very much could be seeing the end of these armies where you're able to both take a very large amount of elite models and a very large amount of troops. We may be seeing a situation where bodyguards actually act as bodyguards. I'm initially, in terms of like what we're going to see in army composition, I think this is really, really super cool. My concern is how much is this going to mess with people's armies that they've spent a lot of money on that aren't going to legacies, but now possibly they're facing the option of not playing them. And also there are situations where it's entirely thematically appropriate. Like if you're doing like Theoden's Guard or some sort of guard thing, it's entirely appropriate for them to be all Royal Guard choices. So like Ash, what do you think on it? Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I think obviously we see that we play 40k, and this is a feature of 40k where, for example, you can't take Dante and put him in a squad of normal intercessor marines. You can only put him in with ones with the assault keyword. So that'll be very interesting. Like you say, does that mean like my Royal Guard force? I've got a lot of Royal Guard that I can only maybe take them with Theoden, for example, and that means you can't have Royal Guard with Aomer, or you can't have Royal Guard with Dernhelm. So that would really restrict how I run my current list. I think it's gonna add a nice flavour to lists and be a nice, I guess, change to how people build lists. You're not gonna see, well, hopefully it's sort of combating some OP where you just have an army just full of a certain model type because they're super strong, like a lot of Black Numenorians maybe, or things like that. That it's going to restrict how people build their lists. Obviously, again, we've had people upset because they've taken models out, and now they're going to restrict that even more by perhaps you can't use them unless they're within a warband with a certain leader.
Yeah, I obviously we've got to see how this is implemented, but I think this has the potential to be really, really interesting. We never actually made it because so much information got dropped beforehand, but we were actually going to do like a hopes and aspirations for the new edition, and I really, really wanted to see some sort of change up to the way army composition is made, and for a good chunk of armies, this is going to have an effect. I mean, I do wonder whether it makes us take more bigger armies because we've got less option for elites, but we'll have to see. Anyway, moving on to our final leak for this video, we have the much talked about, sometimes maligned, intelligence characteristic, which we knew was coming. Now, in the subsequent videos, you're going to see what this intelligence characteristic actually looks like on a profile, what maybe an elf has got, what maybe a man has got, and we can discuss it further. But essentially, the intelligence characteristic is going to work in lieu of many situations that we used courage for. And it's going to follow the same rules for doing those sort of courage tests, that if you've already done it once this turn, you don't have to repeat it. So you can see there in example 49, where we've got Frodo being targeted by a Spectre's Fell Light. He's targeted by 1. He rolls two dice and he passes his intelligence characteristic. I also like that these have been simplified and they're now sort of the reverse way round. It's 5+ rather than rolling to try and get beneath it. I like that as a nice simplified change. And then on the other side, this is far more significant, because if they were just adding it in and doing the thing on the left, this is just an added complication to the courage characteristic to make something thematically make sense. But on the right, we can see that this is going to play a part when digging up objectives, and that potentially opens the door for this to have a factor in other objective play. And this again could massively change how people make their armies, because there are you will often see infantry lists that just auto include a particular cavalry model because it's good for going and grabbing objectives. But maybe now that model has a terrible intelligence characteristic, and that's not viable. Big changes here to the way objective play is done. Handing over to you, Ash. What's your viewpoint on it?
I mean, you could have still used the courage test to do these things and just kept it simple. I know it doesn't really make sense in terms of wording, but then I guess you could have someone who's got a high courage and a low intelligence, so maybe
exactly
that's what they're thinking. It makes more sense that side. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting in match play, and it sounds like they're maybe focusing on these sort of more objective games where you pick up objectives. Is what, and I hope that's the case, because I think 40k, Age of Sigma, Old Worlds, they're more objective based games than having Assassin, for example. So that's one thing we could read from this. But I think having that intelligence, it's that little extra piece of gameplay that will change how people build lists as well, and how they use certain models within their list. You can't just now ride onto an objective and pick it up and ride off.
I think particularly for I could imagine Goblin Town having very low intelligence across the board. It definitely poses a question of how are you going to make this army work, and you need to think about that now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think those low intelligence armies where maybe they were a bit OP because you've got loads of models, so you could swarm people to sort of pick up objectives. That might change this.
But
it'd be interesting to see if the relic or objective is buried, where you still have to roll to find out if it's there or not, and then roll for an intelligence test to see if you pick it up.
Yeah. Are you smart enough to see that it's there? I don't know. To be honest, I hope see. What one is that? No, that's Heirlooms, isn't it? I hope Heirlooms is just retired to, look, this is a fun game to play at home, which it is. It's got no place in competitive play. But yeah, I'm very interested to see when they come out with the tournament pack. But on the whole, Ash, what we've been through today, the unit definitions and the intelligence, my opinion is this is far more good than it is bad. I mean, I am with you on the Fell Light example. I don't really see why that can't just be intelligence. But maybe they just wanted to make it more useful than just applying it to objectives.
Yeah, and I guess we don't know what... do we know what Fell Light is? I guess, is that a current rule that the Spectres have?
Yeah, I think it is. It's not one I'm super familiar with, so I don't want to completely go over it. But
it sounds weird that that's...
Yeah. I think it
not a courage test if it's against magic.
I think it currently was a courage test, if I recall right. It's one that can make... It's basically like a compel, but I think it's done against your courage test. Don't quote me on that. I've never played them. I've had it played against me, but yeah, I think that may be what it is. But yeah, I think on the whole, these are both massive positives. So let's just move back to sort of summary. Like I say, tomorrow we are going to be dropping the Elrond profile. Make sure Ash, it's your line.
Make sure you like and subscribe
Yeah,
so that you get to see it.
Yeah, there you go. We're going to be dropping the Elrond profile tomorrow. We're going to be dropping Rohan on Friday. And then all of these are going to be coming out about 6 a.m. on all our platforms. And then finally on Saturday, we're going to hit with the Dunman profile. I wouldn't be surprised if Games Workshop sort of have a response to all this information being everywhere and get an article out at the weekend. So we're trying to make sure that we deliver this to you first in sort of, the format you've come to know and love, and we enjoy delivering to you. I think that's all we have for this video today. We wanted to keep it nice and short. So yeah, thanks for listening. That's all from me.
That's all from me.
All right, we'll catch you tomorrow, guys. Hope you're hungry for more leaks.